Oh, it's already dead on arrival. Senator Hawley, thank you. We appreciate it. All right, joining us now is incoming White House Deputy Chief of Policy, Stephen Miller. Why do I suspect that you have a lot to say on this tonight, Stephen?
Well, Sean, here's what it comes down to. First and foremost, Donald Trump just won a historic landslide. He is entitled to come into office in January and work on his agenda the American people elected him to. He should not have to come into office and immediately be saddled with a government funding expiration followed by a debt ceiling expiration. That is what the current plan would do, is he would come into office and immediately have to work on negotiating a debt ceiling hike with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and extension of government funding. That is not consistent with putting Donald Trump in the best possible position to enact the transformative legislative agenda that he campaigned on. Historic tax cuts and reforms, an energy revolution, record-setting border security and border protection investments, and the entire agenda to bust inflation and make this economy grow. Furthermore, as you've mentioned, there are provisions that are in this year-end government funding bill that are on their face unacceptable. How are we even having a conversation about a provision that would shield members of the January 6th Unselect Committee from basic oversight, accountability, and investigation? How are we talking about funding global censorship at the State Department? And again, how are we talking about sticking President Trump with a debt ceiling expiration at the very beginning of his administration? Set President Trump up for success. Set him up to put the agenda he campaigned on into action, Sean.
And you know what? Maybe they'll learn the lesson the hard way. Maybe if they have to work Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and maybe if they have to do their job, maybe they'll think twice about ignoring deadlines like the beginning of the fiscal year, October 1st. Maybe they'll get the message that the country is fed up with nearly $40 trillion in debt that we're giving to our kids and grandkids. Maybe they'll realize that the principle of limited government is a principle every Republican that cares about working men and women needs to care about. Thoughts?
Yes, and maybe, and just maybe, working through the holidays as a member of Congress is a small price to pay so that the American people can have all of these incredible things that I just outlined. What are a few extra days or weeks of work for members of Congress so that, again, President Trump can come in and he can work with Congress to pass historic border reforms, historic tax reforms, historic energy reforms, historic deregulatory reforms, and get this country into a position of strength, dominance, and security that it has never known. Why in God's name are we not giving President Trump the best possible chance of doing exactly that in January?
They need to own the debt ceiling. They need to own the CR. Probably the
Yes.
best way out would be a clean
Yes.
CR, raise the debt ceiling. Donald Trump doesn't own that. Joe Biden and the Democrats own that with all their reckless spending
Yes, Sean,
on student
that's
loans.
the plan. Do it.
And endless wars that they've been ratcheting up in recent months in the final days of Joe's presidency. Stephen Miller, thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.